Welcome to the Born for Greatness podcast. I am so excited to have Donovan Pyle on the podcast today. He is the CEO of Health Compass Consulting, the author of a new book called Fixing Healthcare, and he was just named the 2025 Benefits Advisor of the Year by the Validation Institutes. He also holds the highest designations in the benefits industry and is here today to share the C-suite playbook for turning healthcare frustration into a powerful competitive advantage. Welcome, Donovan. It's so nice to have you.
Rebecca, it's great to see you.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit more about yourself before we dive in.
Well, most people don't know this, but my first career was actually in music. I played drums professionally in Manhattan for a long time. If you were
Wow.
listening to, if you were watching TV in the early 2000s, you probably
Hmm.
heard me playing on commercials for things like HBO, Motorola, think commercials like that. And
Wow.
And so that was my first career. But once, we had I was touring with the bands. Our
Hmm.
record deal, our record company went bankrupt. And I said, you know what?
Oh
This has been a
gosh.
great run, but, I'm getting a little up there in the years. And what's the complete opposite life experience from the music business? It's got to be the insurance business.
Wild.
So, so instead of going to bed at 6 a.m., it's time to start waking up at 6 a.m. And
Yeah.
that's led me down some pretty interesting path.
That's so interesting. I know that we always talk about like no one sets out to be in insurance, and the stories of how people got into this industry is always very interesting. Yours might be the most interesting I've heard thus far. So, very, very cool. Oh, awesome. So, you just wrote a book. Was this your first book or?
Here it is. Just came out November 12th, Fixing Healthcare, How Executives Can Save Their People, Their Business, and the Economy. I know that's a pretty aggressive title. But
Yes.
when you look at the amount of healthcare waste, it's
Hmm.
just it's an opportunity hiding in plain sight. I couldn't keep it to myself. I had to get the ideas and the opportunity onto paper and out into the hands of people that really need it. So that's what I've been doing for the past 2 years.
That's amazing. So, what made you want to write a book?
Well, it's been frustrating to me to see, let's just level set for your audience who may not be so familiar.
Yeah.
Employers spent about $1.3 trillion last year covering 164 million Americans with healthcare benefits. But here's the thing, about 325 billion of that was completely wasted, right? That's
Wild.
about
Yep.
that's about $4,000 per employee last year that was completely wasted. And so I said, there are so many opportunities hiding in plain sight. I live in downtown Orlando. We've got,
Mm,
Harris Rosen, who founded Rosen Hotels in
yes.
1974. This guy
Mhm.
pioneered the way on how to save your company money by improving benefits for your
Yes.
population. He saved his business over a $500 million on healthcare over the last 30
Hmm.
years and offers a superior health plan to his population. So that's all
Yeah.
been very inspiring to me. And I said, more people have to know and learn how to do this. What is the roadmap on how to actually execute on this opportunity and measurably increase the financial and physical health of your organization?
Yeah. So, what do you think is hindering companies from going this route? Is it the lack of knowledge that this even exists, or what would you say?
Yeah, so you gotta, I mean, as a business, you have to understand the role that different vendors and stakeholders play in your supply chain. And so I have
Mm,
a whole chapter on in my book about this, and that's what the history of the benefits industry. And so
yeah.
the long and short of it is that, hospitals actually put up the seed money to create health insurers in the 1930s for distribution purposes, right? They
Yep.
wanted they needed distribution. They wanted to stabilize their revenues, and what better way to do that than having a prepaid plan, right? Because this was SaaS before SaaS was a thing, right?
Yes. Exactly.
Health insurers are wholesale distribution for hospitals, And the brokerage industry developed to serve as retail distribution for health insurers, right? So they are in
Yep.
the business of selling products, not helping businesses maximize their investment. And so,
Hmm.
as you know, um, legacy brokers make more money when your costs go up. So if you're,
Yes.
81% of businesses use a legacy brokerage firm, and you're essentially asking the fox to guard the hen house, and most businesses don't even know that that's the relationship that they have. That's the
So
situation
true.
they're in right now. And so, the
Mhm.
first critical step in healthcare transformation is getting unbiased advice.
Mm, absolutely. That's really helpful. I think that even when I talk to a lot of, smaller business owners, they're just so unaware that there's any other option outside of the BUCAs. And so they feel like this is it. This is the only thing I have. And you're right, talking about, what Mr. Rosen created is amazing. And if more people could kind of grab a hold of that and run with it, it would just change so many lives.
It
So,
would change absolutely. It would change our country. I mean,
mm.
for those of us who are nerds that study population health, we talk about
Hmm.
this thing called social determinants of health all the time, right? And one
Okay.
of the leading social determinants of health is financial stability. So, and I
Mm,
really emphasize that because, again, we're wasting $4,000 per employee most businesses are wasting $4,000 per employee per year. Not only that, the number one reason for bankruptcy in this country is medical bills. But here's the thing, about 75% of those people who file for bankruptcy because of
hmm.
medical bills, they have health insurance, right? So
Yeah, it's so true.
if that isn't proof of failure, I don't know what
Yes.
is.
That is such a good point. Yeah, I mean, when someone is looking at, for a good example of bankruptcy, is what are the options for someone when they've got an astronomical, bill from a hospital that they can't pay?
You got to negotiate. I mean, there was
Mm,
a company called the Caris Group, which became Sedera, and the Caris Group for 30 years, what they did was negotiate with hospitals for the uninsured. And I've actually done this myself. And so if you
okay.
actually pick up the phone and engage with the health system, you can absolutely negotiate on the price and the bill that you owe them. Everything's on the table as far as I'm concerned. I mean, think about this. Where I live in Central Florida,
Hmm.
healthcare prices vary over 1,000%, right? It's like I just bought an
Yes.
MRI for myself a few weeks ago for 400
Hmm.
bucks. And we've got so many employees who are buying that same MRI for $4,000. I mean, it's just complete
That's
insanity. It's
crazy.
not sustainable. It just doesn't make sense. These are commoditized services, right? So many of the things that
Yeah.
we buy in healthcare are commoditized services. Imaging, labs, prescription drugs. These are commodities, right? So you don't,
Hmm.
there's no point in paying 1,000% more for
It's
one at one
crazy.
place than another place.
Well, I know I've talked to other people about the fact that we have this, we assume that more expensive means better because in everything else, that's
Yep.
kind of what it means. But in healthcare, that's not the case. And why do you think that people aren't more aware of that fact?
Because we live in a market economy, and
Mm,
as you mentioned, we're so conditioned to think that higher prices send a signal to
mm,
purchasers that this is a higher quality, more valuable item or service. And that is so ingrained in our DNA as people that grew up in a market economy. We're so blessed to live in a free
yes.
market economy, um,
Yeah.
that, when we see something that where it's the opposite, where it's an inverse marketplace, as healthcare
Hmm.
has become, that just violates our senses in so many ways. But I think let's take a step back. Let's talk
Hmm.
about how did we end up here in this inverse marketplace in healthcare?
Yes.
These PPO networks that, let's face it, PPO networks, it's not like they've been etched in stone. and we've always had to have them.
Yeah.
They're only about 40 years old, okay?
Mm,
Right? And the whole point of them was to hide the price so that insurers could actually spread price and
right.
make money on the services themselves. Again, they
Hmm.
are wholesale distribution. That's their role, okay? So they're
Yep.
marking up the price of the services, and PPO networks allow them to do that much more effectively. So, so I think, just looking forward, I think networks are going to be passé. I mean, I think they're going to
Mm.
finally go out of style and be replaced with more direct forms of payment for most services. And that's probably a very good thing.
Yes, I would agree. I think that um, just when you think about the overall healthcare industry and people think about kind of it feels like such a giant and it's so scary for the everyday person. If you don't have a benefits advisor or a broker who can come and educate you, it's really nerve-wracking to go outside to something different. How do you usually talk to employers who are on the fence?
Yeah, so I mean, so at Health Compass, my consultancy, our job is to fix healthcare supply chains for businesses. We've designed our revenue model so that our job is to protect employers from insurance companies and health
Mm,
systems and PBMs. That's our job, right? And our
yeah.
revenue model supports that. We are agnostic to the marketplace. So whatever solutions our clients want, we will support that. We will implement it. We will manage it, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, employer, yes. So to answer your question, this is a very scary topic for businesses, right? Think about it. Most
Absolutely.
most finance teams and HR teams, they know nothing about healthcare financing and procurement, right? It's not
Yes.
their lane. It's just not
Hmm.
what they do.
So true.
And so this is and let's face it, these are people in leadership roles who are used to being extremely competent,
Yes.
right? They're used to being good
Absolutely.
at stuff
Hmm.
and
Very
having
much so. Yeah.
and having opinions about things, right?
Yes.
And
Hmm.
so I think I think we have to be honest and be empathetic to them and say, listen, you don't have technical expertise in this area, and that's totally normal. That's fine. And this is why
Mm.
it's so important to get unbiased advice because, you know, you are leaning on outside experts so heavily because of the information asymmetry between you and the other vendors. And so, the first step in healthcare transformation that I outline in my book is
Hmm.
getting unbiased advice. If you don't get
Yeah.
unbiased advice, you will never get to the second step in the transformation. Um, and I think because of the misalignments in the brokerage industry that's existed for 90 years, employers are skeptical of what they're being told by their
Yes.
brokers in many cases. They just don't
Hmm.
really know who to believe, who to trust. And so they're just skeptical about paralysis, I think, really is
Yes.
what we're all suffering from. So,
Absolutely.
one of we got a call from a teachers union, a large teachers union,
Hmm.
a few years ago, and they were like, listen, and I didn't even know they existed when they called us up. But they're like, listen, we've got a number of our union members sitting on this insurance committee, and they're smart people, but they don't know
Hmm.
this insurance stuff, and they're being asked to make decisions about a $65 million healthcare budget. And
Crazy.
by the way, like we're having some major challenges with our plan. Like the costs are just astronomical. Can you just
Yep.
come in, do an analysis of what we've got going on, and tell us, what should we be pressing for in these
Hmm.
monthly committee meetings? So we went in, we did an analysis, we scored them in this, several categories of benefits value, and we said, listen, I mean, here is the low-hanging fruit as a mature self-funded plan. You've been with the same, you haven't gone to RFP for a new pharmacy benefit manager in 7
Hmm.
years. And by the way,
Hmm.
you're with one of the worst ones. Push
Yep.
for an RFP for a new pharmacy benefit manager. They did that. They got a new pharmacy benefit manager. They saved about $3.6 million on drugs last year with virtually
Wow.
no disruption to their population. This is
Wild.
this is low-hanging fruit all across the
Hmm.
country. There are these opportunities, especially in the municipality space, my goodness, where
Yes.
they're just using vendors whose business models are diametrically opposed with their interests. It's totally
Hmm.
unnecessary.
Yeah, that it's so very true. And again, people just don't know what they don't know. And
Yeah.
it's a very, I think once you peel back the curtain and see what's going on behind the scenes, it's scary and very overwhelming because you don't know where to start. And so having your book being available to kind of walk people through, it's almost like a little guidebook of
Yep.
what to do is really great. Um, so you were a musician. Somehow, some way, insurance sparked your interest. Did you ever think that you would get to this point in health benefits?
I never had, no, no. I really had no idea what to think. I came into
Right.
the industry completely cold. Um,
Hmm.
Worked my way up through the carrier side of the business. Towards the tail end of my tenure with that carrier, I was managing our largest distribution partner for our division, the
Hmm.
largest broker that was selling our products. And part of my job was to actually develop the incentive programs for them, right? So I was
Mm.
literally like developing the incentive programs and flying them around
Yeah.
the world on luxury vacations when they hit our sales targets that we had established for them. And we
Wild.
did, and we didn't do that out of the goodness of our hearts. We did it because we wanted we wanted them to recommend our products over our
Right.
competitors, right? I mean, this is just
Exactly.
basic blocking and tackling. We're a publicly traded company. We've got aggressive sales goals. We got to meet those goals. So this is just part of the routine, and we didn't think
Hmm.
anything of it. But yeah, really, this industry has really taken me professionally to some very unknown and unforeseen areas, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think when you get started and you see that it's profit over people, it hits hard. Like this is an industry I think where you see it more than anything else. That making you I just look at comparisons on like cancer drugs and how much they can cost and then how little you can actually get them for and the fact that people are at a point where they're saying should I put food on the table or should I get my cancer treatment is a position that nobody should ever have to be in.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the whole system is currently designed to hide the price from consumers. And as we
Hmm.
mentioned earlier, that just creates so many distortions throughout the marketplace and inefficiencies throughout the marketplace. So, when we talk about a healthcare transformation at the organizational level, um,
Hmm.
I look at it through the lens of a maturity model. So, in other words,
Okay.
as an organization grows and becomes more sophisticated over time, how they finance and procure healthcare also grows and becomes more sophisticated over time, so that they're driving
Yes.
more value to their bottom line and their people. And so,
Hmm.
one of the first, steps in that progression is to put yourself in a position where you can actually start seeing your supply chain, right? So
Hmm.
rather than thinking of healthcare as a single line item expense on your P&L, it's actually thousands of individual expenses. And once, the CFO can start actually seeing this, can actually see this supply chain, then they start identifying, and we, of course, help them identify these opportunities.
Right.
Why, to use the previous example, why is the employee getting an MRI for $4,000 here when they can go down the street and get it
Exactly.
for 400 bucks? At the end of the day, employers are the ones that pay for this stuff. It's not the insurance
Yes.
companies. It's
Hmm.
the employer and the patients and the employees that pay for all this stuff. So you have to take ownership and stop delegating the management of your supply chain to brokers and insurance companies who have no financial incentive to actually do that
Yes.
well on your behalf. In fact, if they actually do a good job managing your healthcare supply chain, they make less money. Nobody wants to do that.
Right. That is so true. So you mentioned that earlier. You said, sometimes it's hard for people when they're looking for, a benefits advisor. Who do I trust? What are those key things that you would tell somebody to look for?
Yeah, so I mean, this is how crazy this industry is, as you know. I mean, mo
Hmm.
lots of small and mid-sized businesses don't even have a contract with their broker, and there's very good reason for that because the broker doesn't work for you, right? I mean,
Right.
that's why you don't have a contract. So you don't,
Yep.
and without a contract, you don't know what they do, what's the scope of service, who pays them, how much or why, right? You just don't know any of that
Yep.
stuff. You're
So
completely
true.
in the dark. So I would say, listen, ask your broker, are you willing to serve as a fiduciary to us in your contract with us? And if they
Mm.
say no, that tells you everything you need to know. They don't work for you. They are not willing to legally provide you, say that they're going to work in your best interests. And so you're obviously familiar with the Consolidated Appropriations Act, which basically
Hmm.
said, listen, employers, you're now legally obligated to know exactly how your broker gets paid. Okay, so you can do
Yep.
that through what's called a 408 disclosure. If you go to fixinghealthcare.com/disclosure, you can download a 408 disclosure template. Ask your broker to complete it. It's going to be very eye-opening for you. You'll see very interesting things in there in many cases,
Yes.
especially if you're using a top 20 brokerage firm. The most
Hmm.
egregious one I saw recently was that it said, quote, on occasion, insurance companies will provide us with loans and lines of credit.
Wow.
So basically,
Wow.
they've created a debtor creditor relationship where, yeah, I mean, the brokerage firm is held hostage to these large insurance companies and pharmacy benefit managers. So you're certainly not
Hmm.
going to get your chances of getting unbiased advice from those top 20 brokerage firms for the most part is
Right.
almost null. So you have to have transparency in that area. And okay, but how do we get unbiased advice?
Exactly.
Okay, we're telling everyone to do this. Well, how do you actually do it? Okay, there are
Hmm.
two ways,
Okay.
two simple ways you can do this, and I outline these in my book. The first one is you can go to, the Validation Institute is growing a list of fiduciary-based management consulting firms who, in their contract with you, serve as a fiduciary, meaning that they are legally obligated to serve in your best interests, okay? And
Hmm.
protect you from supply side vendors, health insurers, PBMs, hospitals, etc. That's their job, okay?
Yes.
So the Validation Institute is building out a list of those. The other way that you can do it, if you're a larger organization, let's say you've got more than 1,000 employees, is to start bringing high quality benefits expertise in-house, right?
Mm.
Put them on your payroll. Now,
Yes.
as you know, the ROI on that hire can be
Hmm.
30 to 1. I mean, it can be tremendous
Absolutely.
assuming that you can actually find them. And I will say there's not a ton of high quality benefits professionals who really specialize in supply chain management. But if you
Yes.
can find one and acquire them, you absolutely should. So those are the two ways that you can do it. But for the vast majority of businesses, it makes so much more sense just to work with a management consulting firm that specializes in this area, serves as a fiduciary to you, gives you the unbiased advice you need to maximize your investment.
That's great advice. Do you think that we will see in the coming years employers kind of taking their power back in this area and less control over kind of the bigger carriers?
Yeah, I mean, and this is one of the core messages in my book is that, the federal government actually already grants you all the power. You have the power to demand accountability and transparency
Yes.
from your vendors. You already have it. The government actually has your back here. Fiduciary compliance and responsibility is not, this is not a bad thing. This is actually
Yes.
your opportunity to,
Mhm.
again, demand accountability and transparency from your vendors so that you can make better business decisions. And so, my message to employers is, listen, most of you are missing a huge opportunity to measurably improve the financial and physical health of your organization, I want you to go on offense, take back control, and lead the way. This is what the C-suite needs to be doing. They have the power to do this. They just needed the clarity, and that's exactly why I wrote my book.
I love it. So, where do we find your book? Where can we purchase it?
Well, it's on all the channels, but you go to www.fixinghealthcare.com, and that's a great place to purchase it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being my guest, Donovan. This was so insightful. I'm excited to read your book. If anyone wants to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
Sure, you can go to donovanpyle.com, or you can go to my firm's website, which is healthcompassconsulting.com, and there's tons of good resources there for you.
Amazing. So, can you leave the audience with your number one piece of advice for going into 2026 with their health plans?
Well, listen, given that the status quo is completely unsustainable and unnecessary, and most of you are wasting over $4,000 per employee per year, my message is very simple. Take back control and lead the way. There is the return on investment for engaging in your second or third largest expense is tremendous. Take advantage of it, gain first mover advantage, right? I mean, there's a
Yeah.
number of large businesses out there who are kind of a little fat and happy and a little bit complacent in this area. If you're a mid-sized
Yeah.
business, that's a tremendous opportunity. Go for it.
I love it. Your passion is contagious. Thank you so much for being my guest today. And those of you who are listening or watching, make sure go grab a copy of the book. You will not be disappointed. Thank you so much.